On to another question now, from Sarah White.
Baroness Warsi suggests religion is being sidelined, marginalised and downgraded in the public sphere. Isn't this a good thing?
Baroness Warsi is suggesting religion is being sidelined. And I don't think she was referring to the religion of the NHS. Owen Jones.
Well, look, let's be clear. Religion in this country, in private religious belief, has been on the decline for a very long time. Only 1 in 7 of us regularly attend church. There was a poll done a few years ago which showed less than 4 out of 10 of us believe in God. But I think to suggest that, I mean, her suggestion was talking about militant secularism. Let's be clear what secularism actually is. It's the state keeping its nose out of private religious belief, and it's not favouring one religion over another, and that's correct. Religion more than punches its weight in this country. A third of that schools are faith schools, which I think is wrong. It divides kids up by the religious beliefs of their parents. We are one of the few countries in the world to have unelected religious figures in our legislature outside Iran. But I do think there is a serious point, which I think was missed in what she said. It's when people's prejudice and bigotry is dressed up as secularism. And I'm particularly disturbed by the rise, for example, of anti-Muslim prejudice in this country. I grew up with many young Muslims, and I never see the reality of their lives portrayed. When Muslims appear in the press at all, it's as radicals, terrorists, extremists. And in fact, there was a survey done a few years ago which showed, they took a random newspaper week and it showed that in that coverage of Muslims, 9 out of 10 were negative articles. There is a rising tide of anti-Muslim prejudice which dresses itself up as secularism, and that is a serious point which I think we need to address.
Julie Meyer, do you see the government, successive governments, as endorsing militant secularisation of the society?
Do I see the successive governments endorsing
Yes, in this
it?
country doing this.
I mean...
She was talking about things like not being able to display signs of religion in government buildings, people not being allowed to wear the cross, or not being allowed to dress as they chose in circumstances.
I mean, you can take anecdotes out. I believe in the separation of church and state. I think that faith and belief is an individual choice. And I think what the media kind of is highlighting this and so forth. I think it should just be a level playing field. People should be able to do what they want, whether that's believe or not believe. I think the only other comment I would say, you know, as somebody who have been here for 15 years, but the UK has a very rational culture. If you go to other cultures, it's much more focused around belief. And I just think that belief outside of religious belief, it impinges on whether we believe that we can make things happen. And I think that we're very rational, very analytical. And, you know, again, working with entrepreneurs, in the broadest sense of the word belief, they believe that they're going to make things happen. And I think that we're very analytical.
And you're very hot on entrepreneurs.
And digitisation.
John Prescott, religion is being sidelined and downgraded, is what Baroness Warsi said. Baroness Warsi, of course, being co-chairman of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about religion at all, but I think a lot of people do, and it's a matter of faith. And if they get comfort from that, fair enough. But what I find this difficulty is when government intervene to implement what is a priority for one particular religious belief. In this, it's Christian belief, largely coming from our own history and the church, for example, and the Queen is the head of it. What I think, and it blew up really over whether you should be able to pray is on the agenda at a local authority. Well, the courts have ruled it shouldn't be. I actually think that's right. Now, will government intervene to restore that right to official business to put there will be prayers? Now, we have it in the House of Commons and the Lords that we've done it traditionally. I have to know in the House of Lords, if you want to ask a question, there are so many people in now, you can't get a seat to ask the question unless you go in for prayers. I mean, it's getting crazy. So, you know, something similar about putting your card in the House of Commons. The test will now come, and I think it'd be wrong if Eric Pickles and the government then decide to say that this will now be legally right for the local authorities to impose it on the agenda. I think that's wrong, and that's where the government intervene and create this kind of problem.
This was Mr. Justice Ousley, wasn't it? who said that you couldn't have it. You could have prayers, but you couldn't have them on the agenda as part of a formal agenda. Was he right?
Which everybody should have to attend.
Yeah, actually, it's been totally overblown that, because he was interpreting, I'm sure correctly, Justice Ousley, a local government act. So they didn't have the powers to do it. In fact, it's in the process of being changed, and there's a bill before the House of Commons, the localism bill, which will give local authorities the powers to do it. So it's a great deal of frightfully entertaining debate, but it's a rather passing phase, and it'll be up to every local authority within a month or two's time once we've got the new act in place. But on the main question, I mean, I don't have any particular religious faith myself, but I do find militant atheism rather tedious, and it's having a bit of a fashion at the moment. Some otherwise distinguished people joining it in. We live in a multi-faith community. I respect other people's faith. People get great strength from their faith. I think it's beneficial to society as a whole when people practice their faith properly. And we're a tolerant society.
And was Warsi right to say that religion was being downgraded?
Some people try to. I mean, the things she cites vary. I try to find these places where, you know, that you're not allowed to celebrate Christmas and so on. I think there's normally a large public reaction to reports that people are banning Christmas. It's quite difficult to find local authorities that actually
Daily Mail
do it.
said its story was a lie.
If people take political correctness to absurd lengths and stop celebrating festivals, I think that's rather tedious.
You sound slightly sceptical about what the co-chairman of your party
said. I think we're a
said.
broad-based, tolerant society. And actually, the people of faith, of all faiths, add quite a bit to it. We have a secular government, but it's when people start attacking church schools, with respect, the one point where I disagreed with Tom on this case. Well, they're some of the best schools in the country.
All right.
It's better that kids mix from a whole range of backgrounds in this country.
Couple more points.
I'm not in favour of anti-religion. That is
a couple more points from the audience,
anti-religion.
The woman up there in the second row from the back, and then I'll come to you with the dark hair.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Bible it says that Jesus himself says that power and state and religion should be separated. But then last year we couldn't even escape the Pope visiting when all the roads shut down in London and Birmingham. It's just kind of. It just seems kind of like ridiculous, these comments.
Give unto Caesar that
which is Caesar's, but that doesn't mean the Pope can't make a visit. I mean, that's exactly the kind of, with great respect, I'm sure, in my opinion, that is just slightly overreacting. There are millions of Catholics. The Pope's visit was a great success. You've got to be a pretty militant, anti-religious person to start.
It's just that these. I'm not saying he can't visit, but the accusation that the church's being downsized and whatever. It just seems ridiculous. It's everywhere.
He's a head of state, of course, the Pope.
Yeah, no, of course. But
the woman in black there, not in black, with the black hair.
I personally think that we are very, very lucky to live in a secular country. If you observe at the moment the US Republican candidate race, they debate things like abortion, they debate things like the morality of contraception. We don't waste our time with that in this country. We have a completely separate church and state. We don't have to get involved with religious politics. We should be tolerant of all religions, we should teach about all religions, but we should not impose our beliefs on anyone, and it should make no impact on political life.
Okay, and the other back. You, sir.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say faith does influence the law. The reason that I can't have a marriage to my male partner and have had to have a civil partnership is because they wouldn't want to call it marriage because of faith. So it does influence the law, and to say it doesn't is just nonsense.
Okay, Susan Kramer. Susan, if you would.
I was going to say to the last gentleman, we're working on that.
Yes,
and hopefully you will have those choices in the future. We don't do militant here in the UK, and I just love that about it, that our big battle over religion versus secularism is over where our prayers get set on the agenda, before the agenda or on the agenda. And the lady earlier was making a comment about the United States. You just have to look. And it's not just the fact that there are religious arguments over moral issues such as abortion or contraception, but it's the way religion shapes tax policy. benefits policy, shaping foreign policy in the Middle East. And it seems to me we have stepped away from all of that, and we've found a way where people comfortably live together. The moments of tension seem to me to be slight and around small issues. And I am so grateful, because I think the virtue of tolerance is part of the framework of our community, and long may it be so.
And yet in Parliament, Catholics are not allowed to get married in Parliament. Why is that?
That's probably because nobody ever went and said, excuse me, I'm Catholic, could I do it? I mean, that's
well,
it's
I'm
the
sorry,
same
my
way
son
as we
did.
make
He
change.
happens to be a Catholic.
Well, that's
you
okay.
cannot get married in the thing if you're a Catholic. That's just...
Well, John, let's
You
get
can
that
add it to
changed.
your list of things to
Let's
sort
get
out.
that
Well, one by one.
Along with gay marriage.
John.
And when you just when you
It's
sort out
economical.
when you sort out gay marriage, will you also allow heterosexual partners to have a civil partnership if they wanted and not a marriage?
To be honest, I haven't racked my head around that. It sounds reasonable to me.
It's a very, very simple point, which a lot of people, heterosexual people, would like not to have a marriage but have a civil partnership. Anyway, we have...
Doesn't seem an issue.
Well, it is an issue, because you can't do it.
I mean, it doesn't seem to me to be a problem.
Oh, right, OK, fine. Well, we'll look to you. We've got 5 minutes left, and I get ticked off if we don't finish on time, so I suppose we'd better quickly go through this question, which is from Michael Bullitt. It's in the light of where David